You're listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, where we share topics that will inspire business growth and help you stay ahead of advances in technology before they become mainstream. This episode is sponsored by Ingram Micro Xvantage, the game-changing platform that will transform your business potential and reshape how customers see you. On today's episode of B2B Tech Talk, I'll be joined by two very inspirational women who are dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. As a vice president at Bell Business Markets, Siobhan Cox leads the Enterprise Connectivity Organization with responsibility for product and go-to-market strategy. But more importantly, Siobhan is an inspiration for women in technology and an architect for change. In 2021, Siobhan launched a custom coaching program to support gender diversity at Bell. Through the launch of Coaching Circles, Bell Business First Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Mentorship Initiative, Bell Business did not have enough women in the talent pipeline. Siobhan firmly believed that Bell needed to provide more sponsorship and development opportunities for women to ensure progression, engagement, and retention. Siobhan is also the winner of Ingram Micro's GCIS 30 Award. She was presented this award at the Global Cloud and Innovation Summit here in Las Vegas. Also, Bell Canada received the Growth Partner of the Year. Joining the panel today, in addition to Siobhan, is Susan O'Sullivan, Ingram Micro's Vice President of U.S. Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Susan is responsible for developing and executing creative strategies to foster U.S. DE&I goals within Ingram Micro and externally in the communities where they live and work. On this episode, we are going unscripted, so let's dig in. So we're here at the Global Cloud and Innovation Summit, and I feel like I'm so excited because I feel like I have my tribe with me today. Joining me here is Siobhan Cox of Bell Canada and my dear friend and colleague and mentor, Susan O'Sullivan, who is a Senior Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. First of all, Siobhan, congratulations again on your award.
Thank you.
I could not, now knowing you, I could not be more thrilled about your recognition of all your hard work and effort, because the work that you're doing is your part-time job. It's not even part of your job. You're doing it because you believe in it. And that's super cool.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to have the award, and I'm thrilled to partner with an organization like Ingram that places such importance on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's why winning the award is special, but winning it from Ingram is even more special. And I got to meet Susan and yourself. So
What a win.
triple bonus.
What a win for all of us. Yesterday, we covered so many topics, but I want to bring up a topic that was just brought up when I was speaking with Melanie Posey from Research 451, and she was sharing, and I want to see if you agree, that younger women who are coming into the workforce now are speaking out more. They're saying what they're telling their employer what they want, what they need to be successful. Whereas when I started out, it was keep your head down,
Yep.
do your job, and when somebody wants to promote you and recognize you, they will. My, how things have changed. But we still have a ways to go, don't you think?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I think we have a long way to go, but I am encouraged that the new generation are coming in and they are asking. And that's when you're looking, we talked a little about pay equity yesterday, and we talked about or pay transparency. Some things are coming out finally that are going to help the women's cause, but and frankly, diversity in general's cause, quite frankly. But it's a long way to go. Okay, a long way to go.
It is, but I think if we can take one positive, and yesterday we talked about a few things that haven't worked out as well or as fast as we wanted. I think when, we talked about that when we were in our 20s and we waited to be asked. And I think that it takes you a lifetime to figure out that someone isn't going to set this up for you, that you've got to advocate for yourself. So I'm a mom of an 11-year-old daughter. I have an 11-year-old son as well. But the idea that my daughter will feel empowered to tell people what she needs, because the worst thing someone can say to you is no. But if you don't ask, you're not going to get it.
It's 100% no.
Well, it is. So that to me makes me smile. It makes me feel happy that we have change makers and women like ourselves have created, hopefully, an environment where women feel comfortable enough to ask and say what they need.
Absolutely. What's really sad when I think about me and where I'm at in my career, I waited until this point to feel I can speak up because I have nothing to lose, right? I'm not fearful anymore that I may lose my job if I have a good idea.
Yeah.
And that's really, and I don't blame the company. I blame myself.
Yeah.
That's how I was brought up in this industry, and not to feel that empowerment. But it's very liberating now to feel that way. I got to tell you, it feels good. Like you can walk in and say how you feel and go, all right, so if I'm not here tomorrow, I'll just go to the beach. Life will be good.
Life will be very good. But I love the fact that you and I both talked about the liberation factor. But I also think that when people feel free, they can talk and they can bring their great ideas. Because Nina, you always bring fabulous ideas to the table. I mean, this whole podcast is B2B is spectacular. Companies are better and we get better revenues and better growth and just a better culture than people feel like they truly can bring themselves or true selves. And they belong and that they're not going to get kicked out or made fun of or ridiculed. And I think partly too is maybe we're feeling a little fear because we're being recognized for better ideas too. When we put ourselves out a little bit more, I know I'm putting myself out a lot more. And I have throughout my career is you keep moving forward. You put yourself out a little bit more and you put yourself out a little bit more. And you'll find out if it's the right company for you though, too. Because if you are putting yourself out and nothing's happening, well, guess what? You're probably at the wrong company.
But I think I'm going to just think about the way that you smiled when you said, I walk into a room and I feel empowered, and looking at someone's face. And that's what I would often say to leaders in organizations that I talk to. Imagine the feeling that everyone in your organization is walking into the room and you've empowered them to feel that they can make a difference. Now consider a meeting where they go in and there's, a lack of psychological safety, or perhaps they feel that their ideas aren't valued. So for me, it's about organizations creating that environment where people can walk into the room smiling and feeling empowered. And that's when true innovation happens. And that's our role as leaders and as women, senior women in the organization. We can't wait for people to create those conditions for themselves because not everyone can wait. They can't wait until 20 years when they finally feel empowered. So imagine what we can do if we all build that platform to empower people to really be free and to innovate the way that we feel we can now.
And to share this energy, right? Yes. I mean, I left yesterday. You guys, after we had breakfast, I was like, can we just keep this going like to lunch or dinner?
Let's do that next.
Let's do it. There was so many things that I wanted to talk about, but I really, for me, leading, coaching. And by the way, I wish we could do away with the word manager.
Yeah.
I wish we could and I'll tell you why. It has to me the implication that someone has to tell you exactly what to do.
Control.
As a mother, I had to be from up to 18 years old. I was a micromanager, right? You had to be. You had to tell them where to be, where to go, what to do. Then you become a consultant, right? After that, right? Consulting. Well, maybe a macro manager, then a consultant, right? I'm still a consultant in their lives, but they think they're consulting me. So get ready. Your twins, your twins will be that. But you see what I'm saying? I wish we could get to have more people who understand that you're my coach, my mentor. You're leading the team. But once you put the word manager in there, to me, it has a different connotation. What do you think?
Do you not think, though, that the whole power of coaching, and I think that's the transition we all make when we move from being a leader. When you figure out how to be a coach, you look around and you see the results in your team. And one thing that we've implemented a program called Coaching Circles at Bell. And what I observed was that the people in the coaching circles, they had the answers. People inherently know what the right thing to do is. Your instinct will tell you what the decision is. And the role of the coach is to create a condition where someone figures it out on their own. Because I don't know about you, but when I tell my kids to do something, they probably don't do it. But when they figure it out for themselves and I let them feel empowered and that they're part of the journey and part of the decision making, because who wants to be managed? I mean, managed to me has a negative connotation about controlling, keeping someone contained.
I
agree.
not agree more.
I would also say it for me, my like light bulb moment when I knew I wanted to go into management, but it was more about you almost take yourself out of it. And I was getting more fulfillment out of watching people that I was mentoring succeed. And you're so excited. And then you're realizing, yes, I'm still very competitive and I'm still excited about my own wins, but I was more excited about their wins. And people who get into management, you have to understand, or into coaching, you really have to take your ego out of it. And it really has to be about your team and making sure you're more excited about them than you. And if you don't have that, you probably shouldn't go into any role of coach or mentor or manager, because you're probably not the right fit. And that's okay.
Right.
Not everybody can be a good coach and everyone can be a good manager. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. I think that's critical.
So I want to talk too about risks, because we've all taken risks in our careers. I think men handle risk differently than women, especially career-wise. The risks that I've taken, I've always felt, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Don't tap someone else's shoulder. And then what I wasn't thinking was that actually there's someone who sees these qualities in me that I don't see in myself. So maybe I need to look in the mirror a little more closely at myself. And that's been my experience. But I just wonder, I see so many men going, moving you up to, this level, whatever. They're like, okay, yeah, I can do it. And I was like, it just drives me crazy.
I think societal conditioning, and we talked about this yesterday. I've reached the stage in my career where I don't blame women for the way that society has conditioned them.
Yep.
If we think of the way that we want our girls to be perfect and we raise our boys to be brave and fearless. So for me, I guess, age is such a great thing. Wisdom. I feel like this idea that I'm not ready. Well, if I was ready, I wouldn't be going for that role, because honestly, then it would be a lateral move for me.
Right.
But I think that you have to unlearn all that societal conditioning and the humility, and maybe someone's better, and all of those things that as little girls, we're conditioned to be perfect. And there's this show, I don't know if you have watched this show, Wednesday. It's so wonderful. And I watched it with my daughter, and I just love watching her because I've learned so much from being a mom of an 11-year-old daughter. And she was like beaming from ear to ear, and she was like, I love Wednesday. And there's this scene that Wednesday said, I actually really like it that people don't like me. Like, I'm okay with it. In fact, I enjoy it. And Alex was like, imagine if you didn't care what other people think of you. And I was like, this is the role model I want for my daughter, because Wednesday's awesome. She doesn't have to prove it to anyone, because inherently she looks in the mirror and she feels really good about what she sees.
Good for her.
So that's a show you need to watch.
A little Wednesday.
I need a little Wednesday in me, just a little bit. Some of it for me, though, is cultural. I grew up in a very Greek family. My father was the king of the castle. My mother did absolutely what my father told her to do. She was very dutiful. And our job, and I know this sounds really campy, like My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but our job was to work in the restaurant, to get married and have babies. Or
restaurant workers, right?
Yes. And
Would have been excellent, I would say.
well, I'm fortunate that I did get that gene. Love to cook, love to eat, and my husband loves that I love to cook. So that's a good thing. But I think some of it, different cultures, women of different cultures who come in the workplace have to kind of deal with that kind of thing in their head that says, oh, I got to be dutiful. I've got to be, this or that, or pick up the plates or serve. Somehow you go into that mode and you're asking people at the table, a meeting that you're of your peers, and asking people if they want coffee. Like, why? You go into that mode.
I think part of it is when we, as leaders, I think women have to help women point it out to them and say, no, you're not. I think you talked about it yesterday morning. No, that's not your role. Like, we have to help people say, you have your ability. You need to go and apply for that job. I think we need people on the sidelines pushing, right? It's just what we need to be doing as leaders. But also when you see something that you kind of cringe, you're like, oh, don't do that. Pull that person aside and say, no, don't do that. Like it's not your role anymore. And you need to be playing up. And if to play up, you can do that later, maybe in your career, maybe never at all, but that's not your role.
But I think to your point, culturally, because we both talked about having that, I have the Irish Catholic upbringing where being boastful is the worst sin ever. It's the 10th, the 11th commandment. So for me growing up, it was, you would never dream of saying, I was amazing, I did something great, because of course you would have to downplay your achievement. And I think that's what we say, again, culturally, conditioning women. And I see that a lot in the workplace. Well done, you did a great job. And the first thing that most women on your team will say is, no, it wasn't me. It was only a little thing. Oh, or, it was the team. Whereas I observed that culturally, I don't think men were brought up, perhaps, certainly in my culture, to be humble. They would be like, yeah, it was great, wasn't it? And I think, again, it's unlearning things that you learned and that are inherently ingrained in you. That's really hard. And I think we're very tough on ourselves to blame ourselves for our cultural conditioning. If only I could have done this, I could have been further ahead in my career. The system wasn't set up for us. And I think we've just got to become allies and supporters of each other. So to your point, when I see women in those situations and I see women at meetings, and my pet peeve is when people say, stop me if I'm not making sense. Oh. Or they'll say, can I interrupt? And afterwards, I speak, I just take the women aside and I say, your words are so powerful. And think about the last time you saw one of your male peers say, stop me if I'm not making sense.
Never.
And I
Never.
think,
Never. And that makes, and people don't realize that when they say that, that's
immediately diminishes.
It 100% diminishes what that person said, but also makes themselves look bad.
Yeah.
So, right, because it makes them they're right.
Yeah.
They're assuming that they didn't articulate it correctly, and also assuming that no one understood it. So it's a lose-lose comment to make. And a lot of people conditioning to say that, and that's a pet peeve.
The advice I would give women, and it's a hard thing for all of us to do, because I'm not comfortable with silence at all. Growing up in an Irish country,
I agree. There's no silence in my house.
But you have to, after you present at work, you have to be really comfortable. And I like 5 seconds of silence, you're like, oh no, stop me if I'm not making sense. But in that moment, you have to say to yourself, I've made a really good point, and my audience are now digesting what I'm saying. So you have to be ready with the word saying, who has questions? Has anyone I'd love to hear your questions.
That is
versus stop me if I'm not making sense.
That is a great tip.
So I think that's the part for me. And then as women, we can say to other women, hey, I thought you did amazing. But one piece of really constructive feedback is maybe try inserting this word instead of that word. And perhaps being comfortable asking a friend afterwards, like, how was it? Maybe there's someone in that room who's your safe go-to person who you respect their advice. And only ask advice for people that you respect.
I still... Marie Rourke, every time I speak, she texts me, cause I've asked her, tell me what I need to do, tell me what needs to be improved. But she always starts, to your point, Siobhan, this is really great. Keep doing this. I would recommend changing this. And it's been so helpful for me. And it really takes the pressure off a little bit because you know how you're true. You have that person in the room that's going to be honest with you. And I think that honesty is so incredibly important. And to your point, if you're open to the feedback, it is a gift. Feedback is a gift. Please accept it.
It's good.
Yeah, well, true. Fair. I've had some bad advice. True.
We talk about this a lot in my organization because there's a lot of early in career women, and a lot of them will do a 30-minute presentation, and I will be blown away. And I hate saying it, but the majority of times, the woman will text me afterwards and say, oh, but did you see when I fumbled that one word?
Yes.
Or I said the wrong thing. And I'm like, for 29 and a half seconds or 29 and a half minutes, you knocked it out of the park. And I didn't notice that. Whereas I feel like we have this perfectionist gene that we zone in on that one small thing. So a tip for that, And Marshall Goldsmith recommends this. When you mess up at work, something small, you've got to say to yourself, oh, well. And you draw a line in it mentally and go, oh, well, and you move on. Instead of going, oh, but if I had just nailed that one sentence. So, yeah.
Didn't Sanjeev talk about that today? Perfectionism,
Yes.
right? That we're
Perfectly perfect.
all imperfect. We're all imperfect. This whole world is imperfect. We can strive. It is what makes it great. And we try. I tell you, I asked some of the guests if they had an autobiography, what would the title be? I said, I know what mine would be. And it would be, I tried ... I've tried so many things. I tried being the best mother I could be. I've tried everything. I tried.
Yeah.
I tried. And that would be the title of my book. I tried.
I'd buy your book.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. I could sit with these two ladies, I'm telling you, all day long. The energy that I feel from both of you, that I get from you, Siobhan, I feel like there's a sisterhood here. And I'm just so delighted that we had a chance to get together and meet and speak and just share our hearts with the audience. And because there are many women now in technology, and not only women, but people who don't get a voice, don't get a seat at the table because for whatever reason, right? And that is my why. That is my why. I am so interested and so passionate about this and so passionate about helping the next generation so that they don't wait these 20 years, right? And I love you both, and I can't thank you enough for this experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've been listening to Ingram Micro's B2B Tech Talk. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode and you want to continue the conversation online, use hashtag B2B Tech Talk.